in this patient who was seen in consultation for acne scarring primarily, had her concern areas on the mid portion of her cheek, temple, and the glabellar region. Now, we've chosen a combined technique in this patient for the following reasons. She has darker skin. She's got brown eyes, placing her in a Fitzpatrick 3 classification with regard to skin pigmentation. Chemical peel allows us to resurface, if you will, all of the uneven pigmentation and to feather into the treated and non-treated areas. By simply using dermabrasion or CO2 laser resurfacing alone, it is very difficult to soften that zone of transition from the treated and non-treated area. We had a tendency earlier on with dermabrasion and the carbon dioxide laser to over-treat. In other words, rather than just treating the area of concern, to treat the entire subunit. There is much more of a recovery period associated with CO2 laser resurfacing than there is chemical peel, and for that reason, if we take advantage of the chemical peel in the areas that are the transition areas and then use dermabrasion and CO2 laser in the acne scarred or the deepest areas, we allow a much softer transition and also take advantage of a shorter recovery period. And we can demonstrate that in the post-op period. So naturally, we will peel the patient first, which you can see she still has some of her frosting here from the 35% TCA peel that was just done. That will start to dissipate with time, and then we've indicated the areas that we're going to treat with the laser and with the dermabrasion. Again, early on, we used to be overly aggressive with the CO2 laser in the areas of concern, but the problem with that is, one, I think that you do have a mechanical advantage of the dermabrader that you don't get with the CO2 laser, namely the taking down the rough edges of the acne scarring. The other problem is the more passes you go with the CO2 laser, the more likely you are to end up with progressive hypopigmentation in the treated areas. We do feel there's an advantage with the CO2 laser over dermabrasion, namely that with the second pass you get some collagen shortening and tightening of the skin that you don't get with dermabrasion. So our approach here is to do a full face chemical peel and then go back and dermabrade over the areas of concern and then just lightly tighten the areas with the CO2 laser, trying not to treat too aggressively because then you'll end up with an area of hypopigmentation. So we're going to go ahead and resurface with dermabrasion, first going one direction and then 90 degrees to it. We always want to make sure our dermabrader is not rotating away from either the lip or the eye because it's very easy to catch those tissues. They're very supple. And we also want to be very sure that we don't catch the sponge. Everyone who's has learned this technique has caught the sponge at least once or twice in the dermabrader, and it becomes frightening for the patient, especially when you're doing a small area. So this is quite loud. I'm going to start in the most dependent area. And you want to just get to a point where you see that petechial bleeding. It takes a little practice and experience, but even with a wire brush, it's something that can be mastered. And again, you certainly don't want to do your chemical peel after you've done your dermabrasion or laser resurfacing because then it can go deeper. We can control the depth of this by, and we constantly look to see if there's an area that's been undertreated, and I think at this point we've reached a sufficient level of abrasion. Okay, so we've gone on to do all the other areas on the face with the dermabrasion going this direction. So at this point we're going to go perpendicular to it and reach the same level. And again, we do like to start usually in the most dependent area. And what you're doing is you're creating perpendicular micro lacerations of the skin. So we've completed our dermabrasion in the involved areas of acne scarring, and we've done our chemical peel, and now we will just go back with the carbon dioxide laser and do about one pass, maybe two passes. Really, the second pass is the one that gives a little tightening, but we don't want to over-treat the area, so we'll do about 1.5 to 2 passes on the areas that we're treating for scarring. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn on the laser. So we've completed the dermabrasion here as well as the chemical peel, and now at this point we will begin the resurfacing. We're using the carbon dioxide laser at the start safe parameters for vaporizing tissue, and we're going to do at least a good one solid pass to second pass. This also helps with some hemostasis, not that that's really an issue. Again, the area of biggest concern is the scarring here centrally in her cheeks. And even with the carbon dioxide laser, once we wipe off the chart, we will feather that along the transition zone. The more we can feather each one of these modalities, the less abrupt the change is and the less noticeable the area is where it's treated as compared to the non-treated area. Okay, wet sponge crease. Just hold that and then on, and we'll just come back and try to get all the char off. Okay, have the laser back again. And we'll go back for our second pass, the deepest part. So one of the problems is the bleeding can be a little troublesome, so you have to stop and start, get the bleeding out of the way, and pick up where you left off. Just treat over the where it's bleeding, the energy really just becomes dissipated, and you're not treating the tissue 100% absorbed by water or blood. So that's about it for that area. And so now we'll finish the other areas, the areas of the temple and the glabellar region on this patient, and we'll follow her in the post-operative period. Okay, so we've completed the procedure. As you can see, she's had a full face 35% TCA chemical peel, and then we've gone back to here, dermabraded, and laser resurfaced the areas of scarring. And as we mentioned earlier, we're taking advantage of the attributes of each technique. Chemical peel, namely addressing the photo damage with less recovery period. Dermabrasion, having the advantage of dealing with the mechanical aspect of abrasion, which we don't get from laser resurfacing, yet cold steel does have less of a recovery period. Unlike what has been popularized in the women's magazines and the lay press, laser resurfacing does have more of a recovery period than dermabrasion. So if we can use dermabrasion and laser resurfacing taking advantage of the attributes of each. We can cut down some of the amount of laser resurfacing that's done on the cheeks. We've done about 2 passes here on the cheeks and in the temple and glabella region. So at this point, we will go ahead and put our interface dressing on with Aquaphor and follow this patient over the next week to 10 days.